Welcome to the webinar on Erasmus Key Action 2, Strategic Partnerships in the Field of Adult Education and Vocational Education and Training. My name is Lana, and I'm part of the Erasmus team at the UK National Agency, and together with my colleague Rachel, we will provide assistance for this webinar. This pre-recorded webinar is aimed at applicants looking to apply for one of the activities under Erasmus Key Action 2 Strategic Partnerships, Adult Education or Vocational Education and Training. Specifically, strategic partnerships supporting exchange of good practices. The webinar will briefly introduce you with the Key Action 2, application process, and then will focus on how to complete the application form. Please note, this webinar is a joint webinar for Adult Education and VET, as the application form and overall process are very similar for both. However, when applying, you must carefully choose which field is most relevant to your project. The priorities of both activities are also different, so it is very important to ensure you apply under the field that is most relevant to your project and your organization. The Erasmus UK National Agency is a partnership between the British Council and KA2 UK, and is responsible for managing strategic partnership projects in the UK, which is a decentralized action under Erasmus+. Strategic partnerships in the field of adult education and VET are managed at KA2 UK. Other types of projects under Key Action 2, such as knowledge and sector skill alliances, are managed centrally by the Executive Agency of the European Commission. In this webinar, we won't cover centralized actions, but you can find more information about those in Part B of the program guide starting from page 132. In today's webinar, we will cover brief introduction to Key Action 2 and changes applicable in the Call 2019, completion of the Key Action 2 application form, which, starting from the Call 2019, is a web-based form replacing previous PDF forms. First, I'll talk you through some of the steps you need to take before you begin development of the application form. We will then demonstrate how to move between sections, fill out certain parts of it, and how to utilize the distance calculator. Finally, we will look at the next steps following the submission of your application and remind you how to contact the National Agency for additional support before the deadline. Within this webinar, I will be referring to the Erasmus program guide of the Call 2019. In all instances, the program guide used for this webinar is a PDF version 1 of the 2019 Call Guide, available on the Erasmus website, so please bear this in mind as we will refer to certain page numbers of the guide. Before we begin, I would like to briefly mention that the latest information about UK participation in Erasmus after Brexit can be found on the Brexit update page of the Erasmus UK website. Please check this page regularly or subscribe to our newsletter to receive the latest updates. Focus of Key Action 2 strategic partnerships is primarily cooperation and collaboration between different organizations in the field of education and youth. Activities supported under this key action are expected to bring positive and long-lasting effects on the participating organizations, policy systems in which such actions are framed, as well as on the organizations and persons directly or indirectly involved in the organized activities. This key action is expected to result in the development, transfer, and/or implementation of innovative practices at organizational, local, regional, national, or European levels. Strategic partnerships are cooperation projects which allow organizations to work together to improve the quality of education and training provision, tackle common issues, and share or develop innovative practices. There are two types of strategic partnership projects. First, strategic partnerships supporting innovation. Information about this type of the project is covered in the separate webinar. And second, strategic partnerships supporting exchange of good practices, which is the focus of our today's webinar. The main objective of strategic partnerships supporting exchange of good practice is to allow organizations to develop and reinforce networks, increase their capacity to operate at a transnational level, and exchange ideas, practices, and methods. Depending on project objectives, projects may also develop tangible results followed by a certain level of dissemination that is proportionate to the aims and scope of the project. These results and activities will be co-financed through the standard project management and implementation budget, and no separate funding will be available to develop intellectual outputs or multiplier events. The type of strategic partnership to be developed will need to be selected within the application form, and therefore it is important to give careful consideration to the type of the project that is best suited to your project idea, objectives, and the experience and the capacity of your project partnership. Also, when preparing your project and choosing your partner, it is important to carefully consider the experience and capacity of the partner organizations. The flexibility of Key Action 2 allows organizations to deliver large-scale projects as well as smaller-scale cooperation projects. Should you be successful for funding, the grant you receive will depend on the size, scale, and duration of the project. This will be explained in more detail when we review the budget section of the application form. Strategic partnerships should address field-specific and/or horizontal priorities that are relevant to the activity you are applying for, VET or adult education. The partnership can be made of organizations working directly in the field of VET and/or adult education or in other fields of education, training, or youth. However, in all cases, the priorities addressed by the project and the composition of the partnership must be relevant to the field of the application it is being submitted for. The main principle is that one organization applies for funding on behalf of the whole partnership, and, if the project is approved, this partner takes on the role of coordinator and has overall responsibility for managing the funding and reporting to the national agency. Projects focusing on adult education can deliver a wide range of activities around topics such as developing, testing, adapting and implementing innovative approaches in learning and teaching methodologies for adult learners. For example, focusing on delivering key competences, basic skills, language skills, and use of ICT. They can also promote recognition and certification of skills and competencies by referencing them to the European and national qualification frameworks and using EU instruments. They can develop tools or approaches to improve the accessibility of learning opportunities for adults. For example, by development or training courses available for adult education teachers, managers, or other adult education staff, or by promoting the development of multi-purpose learning centers and regional networks of learning providers. They can also focus on providing flexible pathways for adult learners, including validation of their prior learning by practical application and testing of methods that involved valuing knowledge and competences acquired through informal and non-formal learning. Examples provided here are just some of the ideas. For more detailed explanation of eligible activities, you should refer to the examples provided in the Part B of the program guide, in particular, pages 105 and 297 of Annex 1. Always ensure that your project idea fits with the action priorities relevant to the field you are applying for. Where relevant, when devising your project activities, you may find it useful to consult the website of the Electronic Platform for Adult Learning in Europe, known as EPALE. EPALE is a multilingual, open membership online community for anyone with a professional role in adult learning across Europe. It is set up around the sharing of content related to adult education, including news, blog posts, resources, events, and courses. Projects focusing on vocational education and training can deliver a wide range of activities around topics such as developing partnership that supports the setup and implementation of an international strategy of VET learners and apprentices, developing partnerships aimed to promote work-based learning, for example, developing new training content integrating periods of work-based learning. Working together to increase the quality of VET provision and adapt VET provision based on outcomes. Again, for more information, refer to Part B of the Erasmus Plus Program Guide, page 106, and Annex 1 from pages 290 for further examples. Always ensure that your project idea is consistent with the action priorities relevant to the field you are applying for. It is important to be aware of the program objectives and the Key Action 2 field-specific and horizontal priorities when developing your project. Information about the program objectives can be found in Part A of the Erasmus Plus Program Guide, but we will be giving you a brief overview. Firstly, recognition and validation of skills and qualifications. For example, by using Europass or European Credit System for Vocational Education and Training, known as ECVET, to validate the learning outcomes from your project. Secondly, dissemination and exploitation of project results is a very important objective. You can refer to Annex 2 of the Program Guide for useful guidance on this. All Key Action 2 projects are required to upload final project results onto the Erasmus Plus Project Results platform by the end of the project. You should also be aware of the open access requirements of the program. Educational tools or materials produced with this Erasmus Plus funding must be made freely available online in a digital format under an open license. Such materials are known as open educational resources. Another important feature, of course, is the international dimension, which is cooperation with organizations from different countries and making results available in different languages to maximize the impact. Equity and inclusion is also a very important objective. For example, facilitating participation, where relevant and appropriate, of learners with fewer opportunities. Lastly, the protection and safety of participants must always be a priority in the Erasmus Plus project. This includes making suitable plans within your project to ensure that all participants are safe and supported. In addition to the program objectives, in order to be funded, all strategic partnerships must address at least one horizontal action priority for strategic partnerships. Please see pages 106-107 in the program guide. And/or at least one field-specific priority relevant to the field the application is being submitted for, VET or adult education. See page 109 of the program guide. If you select a horizontal priority, you are still required to demonstrate how the chosen priority is relevant to the field you are applying for and how your project will make an impact in this field. Now we will draw your attention to some changes applicable for the Call 2019. The most important change in the Call 2019 is a web-based application form, replacing PDF forms used in the previous calls. Another noticeable change is that starting from the Call 2019, Serbia is no longer a partner country, but is eligible to participate in Erasmus Plus activities as a non-EU program country. Every year, European Commission updates horizontal and field-specific priorities for Key Action 2 strategic partnerships. Therefore, it is very important to refer to the current ones, as they are different from those of 2018. Please refer to page 102 of the program guide for horizontal priorities, page 104 for VET priorities, and page 105 for adult education priorities. An additional activity for VET that has been introduced within the Call 2019. This activity is a short-term exchanges of groups of pupils, which is now possible for VET learners. The eligible duration of this activity is from 3 days to 2 months, excluding travel days. For more information on funding rules for learning, teaching, and training activities, please refer to pages 120-121 of the program guide. Following its launch in May 2018, the program guide has been updated to provide more information on the General Data Protection Regulation. Full information on these provisions can be found on the page 268 of the program guide. So, how does a Key Action 2 strategic partnerships work? Projects can be of different sizes, but there must be a minimum of 3 partners from 3 different program countries, including the applicant. One organization applies to their country's national agency, for example, UK, on behalf of the entire partnership. The lead or applicant organization must always be from a program country. Partner countries can participate as partners if their participation brings clear added value to the project. Projects can last between 12 and 36 months. Duration of the project is being selected at the application stage, and this cannot be changed later in the project lifetime. You should ensure the duration is realistic and plan your activities accordingly. Projects can be of a different scale and size, therefore the budget will be constructed accordingly. Your project budget will be built from a series of budget items based on the planned aims, objectives, activities, and outputs. The maximum possible budget is equivalent to 12,500 euros per month for the duration of the project. However, not every project will receive the maximum available budget. There is no formal requirement for match funding. However, the principle of co-financing applies. This means that the Erasmus Plus grant is a contribution to the costs of delivering the project and may not cover all costs. Please see pages 258-259 of the program guide for more information on co-financing. Before completing your application, you will need to have a participant identification code. PIC. All your partners participating in the project will also need to have a PIC. If your organization does not have a PIC number, please register in the participant portal to obtain a PIC number and then apply for the Call 2019. To obtain a PIC, follow the two-step process. Firstly, you will need to register on EU login, which you will need to use for any external European Commission tool. If you are already registered on EU login, use your existing login details. If you experience issues with registering, we have a video guide on our website which will take you through the process. The second step is to obtain a participant identification code, PIC, through Participant Portal. The Participant Portal is the single entry point for the electronic administration of EU-funded projects related to Erasmus+. You will be prompted to provide information about your organization as well as upload documents related to your organization. These documents are needed to provide the legal status and financial capacity of your organization, and it is essential that the information on these documents matches the information on the portal. If your organization already has a PIC, you should not need to register for another one. Use the existing PIC and ensure that all the information about your organization on the participant portal is correct and up to date. As well as to ensure that they have a PIC, all partners require to submit signed partner mandates with the application. Partner mandates will be pre-filled with information from participant portal and application. Partner mandates are available in the web form and will be explained in more detail what requirements are applicable to partner mandates. Please ensure you refer to the Guide of the Applicants 2019, available on the How to Apply pages of the Erasmus Plus website. This guidance is produced by the UK National Agency to help you to complete and submit your application. As you complete your application, you should also refer to the quality award criteria against which your application will be assessed. The award criteria are outlined in the Program Guide 2019, Guide for Experts, as well as in the Guide for Applicants. You should design your project with these award criteria in mind. All these documents can be downloaded from the website of the National Agency. After developing your project idea and ensuring that your organization and all partners have a PIC number, you can start completing the web-based application form. The application form is a web form and must be submitted online by the applicant organization by the deadline of 11 a.m. UK time on 21st of March 2019. Web application forms are built on the latest standards of the web platforms. The forms support all modern browsers. The forms have been successfully tested on the following browsers: Internet Explorer, Firefox, Chrome. The web application forms are online applications and therefore need fast and constant internet connection. It is not possible to work offline with the forms. We recommend that where possible you use a PC to complete the form, as some Mac computers are not compatible with the form. You will also need PDF reader software, such as Adobe Reader, to print, sign, and scan the Declaration of Honor page, which needs to be annexed to your application. Please ensure that you use the latest version of Acrobat Reader. It is important to note that when completing the required information in the web application form, do not use multiple tabs or open several browser windows for your application. This might cause problems with the autosave functionality of the form and result in lost data in your application. Therefore, from time to time, save PDF version of the application in case of any unexpected technical errors. Please refer to the Guide of Applicants 2019 and the European Commission's technical guidance for detailed information on the functionality of the web form. We will now go into the actual application form of the KA2 2019. We will be using a test application form for illustrative purposes. Both the adult education and VET application forms work in exactly the same way. However, for the actual application, each form should be selected separately for the activity. Web-based application forms are available on the European Commission's webpage under Opportunities subsection. When entering the section, you will then see two blocks to choose from, either by Field of Opportunity or Key Actions. When selecting Key Action 2, you will see the display of opportunities to choose from. For the field of vocational education and training, you will need to select Key Action 202. For adult education, you will need to select Key Action 204. In this webinar, we will be showing the Key Action 204, Adult Education application form for demonstration. In today's webinar, we will show main functionality of all sections as well as provide useful guidance rather than describing all the information needed. We will provide more detail on project activities and budget sections showing how these link to each other. For demonstration purposes, we will switch to already partly pre-filled demo application. We will now go through all sections in the exact order as they appear in the application form. In the context section of the application, you will have to provide basic information for your project. Here you have to choose what is the main objective and topic of your project. Based on this choice, certain sections in the application form will be enabled or disabled. The two options here are innovation or exchange of good practices. You should choose the project format which is most appropriate for delivering the planned project objectives and results. This should be discussed with partners during the initial planning stages, taking into consideration objectives and activities of the project as well as the size, capacity, and experience of the partnership. Although not a requirement, applicants or partnerships with less organizational capacity or less experience in European partnerships may wish to consider applying for a strategic partnership supporting the exchange of good practices as a first step. These projects allow organizations to gain experience of transnational cooperation and to deliver joint outcomes and results without the requirement to deliver substantial, high-quality, innovative intellectual outputs. Here you have to input project title, details in the respective tab. There is also an opportunity to type in a project acronym if you have one. Following this, you will need to input your start date and choose the duration of your project. This will automatically fill in the end date for you. The start date of the project must be between 1st of September and 31st of December of 2019. Please note that the latest possible end date for your project is 31st of August 2022. The section National Agency of the applicant organization requires for you to choose National Agency. For the UK applicant organizations, this will always be UK01. You will also need to select the language you are using to complete the application form. For the applications made to the UK National Agency, this should always be English. Section Participating Organizations. In this section, you are required to input all information about participating organizations known as partnership. Please note that partnership must include organizations from at least 3 program countries. If this criteria is not being met, error message will appear. Error message will notify you that partnership is not valid for this type of activity. In the demo version, we have not inputted leading organization, so now we will demonstrate you how to proceed with adding the partner. Remember, when you input in your PIC and your partner's PIC numbers, the information will automatically populate from the information from the participant portal. Once PIC is checked and information is added, you can now edit details of the organization. Grayed out areas are automatically pre-populated from participant portal. If information of the participant portal is correct and up to date, you will only have to fill the rest of the mandatory fields: profile, associated persons, background, and experience. In the profile section, you should choose the type of your organization. Usually it is expected from organizations to know their type. However, if you are in doubt, please consult lawyer and/or accountant of your organization. Next important part is to input information about associated persons of your organization. Please note that legal person is the one that will be required to sign all the compulsory documents for the application, declaration of honor, and mandates. Now we will edit information about legal person step by step. Please make sure you put a valid email address for further communication. Once this section is completed, go back to Application Organization Details and edit Contact Person's information. Proceed with the same steps. You will then also need to choose who will be preferred contact person in regards to all matters of application. Now, moving to background and experience of the applicant organization. Here you have to describe your organization, experience, field of work, and main areas of expertise that are correlated to the project idea. As a final part, you must inform whether your organization participated in European Union granted projects in the 3 years preceding this application. We will select yes for this question and enter details of the previous participations. Here you can add more than one line of details of the previous applications. Once this part is done, go through details one more time. There are several aspects to be taken into consideration in this section. Firstly, if you notice any details of organization are incorrect for you or your partner, they will need to be corrected in the participants portal first. Note that information from this section will be automatically transferred and pre-filled to Annexes, Mandates, and Declaration of Honor. Please note that all participating organizations need to be identified in the application form, and you won't be able to add partners at a later stage. If you include partners from a partner country, their participation will need to be well justified in terms of how they will bring an essential added value to the project. If this condition is not met, the project will not be considered for selection. It is also important to remember that a better quality application will be specific and name staff members who will be involved in the delivering the project and their skills. Please explain how your organization's previous experience of delivering projects or activities have built the skills and knowledge needed for the activities you propose in this application. Include details of the people of your organization typically working with terms of geographic location and any additional needs they might have if you feel that this information is relevant. In addition, clarify how the activities proposed in this application fit with other programs or activities you deliver. This will help the assessors understand how the proposal is innovative or complementary to other initiatives that your organization is already involved in. Please make sure it is clear from the description of each partner's work and expertise why they have been chosen to participate in your project. This applies to all partners, including less experienced organizations which may be involved, and particularly in partners from other fields of education, training, or youth. Please type correct email addresses of the contact and legal person. In all matters in regards to application and selection, the national agency will utilize given addresses for communication. It is recommended to have more than a minimum number of partners in the consortium to ensure your partnership can deliver projects even after unexpected withdrawal of one of the partners. Overall, it is very important to choose appropriate partners. When looking for potential partners, you can seek recommendations from trusted partners or exploit known links and networks. You can also search for complementary organizations with experience of Erasmus Plus and its predecessor programs via the Erasmus Plus Project Results platform, or use the partner finding tool on the EPALA platform. You may want to consider including partners with a mix of experience of the European cooperation in your project, including where appropriate organizations that are new to Erasmus Plus and/or European partnership working and will therefore gain particular benefit from their involvement. Within the application, you will need to provide a clear rationale for selecting your partners. Partners' experience and knowledge should contribute towards achievement of the project objective. If you include partners from other fields, you will need to provide a clear rationale in terms of how they will add value to a project, depending on the field you are applying for. Under the section Project Description, you will have to select the most relevant horizontal or sectoral priority for your project. Your main priority should be either a horizontal or a field-specific priority, in this case for adult education. After selecting the most relevant priority, you can then choose up to 2 additional priorities in case your application has a cross-sectoral approach. If your application aims to address one of the horizontal priorities, you still need to clearly demonstrate how the project will be relevant to and will impact your chosen field. Please ensure that you address priorities which are relevant to your selected field. Also bear in mind that projects addressing priority of inclusive education and training will be considered highly relevant. However, you need to make sure that this is really addressed within your application and not simply selected from the drop-down menu. Selection of topics addressed by your project is also essential, as it will show the main thematic focus of your project. Please select up to 3 topics. This subsection is followed by a description of the project where several aspects should be taken into consideration. Apart from describing the project and identifying main objectives, your application will be of a higher quality if you explain rationale behind the project. You should demonstrate that your project is based on a genuine needs analysis relevant to the field. You must also ensure you make it clear how your project will address at least one horizontal or one field-specific action priority. If this is not clear, your application might not be funded. Make sure your results fit with the objectives of the project and that they are realistic and achievable. You should provide details of which partners will be involved in particular activities, producing each result, and when they will become available. Make sure you know what is meant by results. Please go to page 315 of the program guide for the Commission's definition. Make sure that you explain how partners you selected will contribute towards achievement of the project objectives. You should explain here how associated partners, if involved, will contribute to the project delivery or support the dissemination and sustainability of your project. If you are unsure about what you can do with strategic partnership projects or priorities of this key action, please refer to the Part B of the program guide, where you can find examples starting from page 296 onwards. If you wish to include participants with fewer opportunities, first check a more detailed definition of people with fewer opportunities, which can be found in the Part A of the KA2 2019 guide, section Equity and Inclusion. You will then need to specify how many participants with fewer opportunities are going to be involved, what are the situations they are facing. For this, you will need to select the situation from the drop-down menu. Also explain how the partnership will support them in order to achieve planned activities. Overall, before inputting information in this section, you have to be clear about the idea and arrangements of your project. It should demonstrate clear feasibility of the project. Section Preparation. In this section, you should mention any preparation activities that will take place before the start of your project, including practical arrangements prior to the submission of your application. Please note that the allocated funding cannot cover any costs incurred before the start date of your project. Therefore, costs associated with the development of the application are ineligible for the project. Section Management. Section management is split into 3 subsections addressing vital parts of the management aspects of the project. Funds for project management and implementation are provided to all strategic partnerships based on the number of participating organizations and duration of the project. The purpose of these funds is to cover diverse expenses that any project may incur, such as planning, working on the project, communicating between partners, small-scale project materials, virtual cooperation, local project activities, promotion, dissemination, and other similar activities not covered by other types of funding. Note that a partnership may receive a maximum of €2,750 of project management and implementation costs per month. As you can see, this section of the budget is automatically completed with unit costs based on the number of organizations involved in the project. It takes into consideration information provided in the section Participating Organizations. Narrative part requires for you to explain which project activities will be carried out with the support of this grant. Subsection Transnational Project Meetings will require to indicate all planned partner meetings during the project life cycle. These costs are also calculated on the basis of unit costs. This component of the grant is a contribution to travel and subsistence costs for meetings hosted by the participating organizations. To create meeting entries, you will need to click the Add button to create a line for each meeting. Costs are based on 3 distance bands, which are 0 to 99, 100 to 1,999, and over 2,000 kilometers. Distance bands are to be calculated using special European Commission distance calculator. Google Maps shall not be used for this purpose. We will now enter the information about the first transnational project meeting with all the necessary attributes. You'll then need to provide a meeting name, the hosting organization and their country, how many participants each organization will send, and the starting period. For this meeting, Testi Chemo will be the host and will have 4 participants, while my organization and my company limited will both send 2 participants. Click the Add symbol once to add 1 row, choose Testi Chemo for the first row, my organization for the second row, and my company limited for the last one. Enter 4 participants in the first row and 2 participants in each of the remaining rows. Now I'm going to switch to the distance calculator to work out the correct distance band. Our test organizations are based in Birmingham, Helsinki, and Barcelona. The distance should be calculated from the nearest town or city to your own partner's registered address. It provides the distance in kilometers, and it's this number which dictates which distance band you need to select. Once the distance is calculated, you'll need to select the appropriate distance band in the application form to calculate the unit cost. This unit cost is contribution to the cost of return journey. Please ensure you use the correct distance band to avoid issues with your budget. As Testi Chemo is the host organization, the distance band is the shortest one and equals to less than 99 kilometers. Second organization, my organization, is based in Birmingham. Third organization, My Company Limited, is based in Barcelona. As you can see, the distance from Birmingham to Helsinki and Barcelona to Helsinki are in different distance bands. After entering the information about the organizations, number of participants and the distance band, the unit costs and total costs will automatically populate. After you have planned all transnational partner meetings, please check if the details are correct one more time. Final subsection is project management, where you have to focus on three main aspects: monitoring of the project activities, assessment of success of your project, and risk management of your project. You will have to indicate who will provide monitoring and how it will be accomplished. Are you planning to involve external project assessor, and how you will manage risks during the project life cycle? Now moving next to section implementation of the application. In this section, give as much detail as you can, explaining how the project activities will lead to the achievement of the project objectives and deliver the planned results. Please describe cooperation arrangements within the partnership in order to deliver a successful project. Mention how you will coordinate activities within the partnership and how you will identify and resolve any risks within your project. The best quality projects will use quality and quantity indicators of achievement in order to assess whether and to what extent the project has achieved its objectives and results. This helps to demonstrate the impact of your project. Where possible, list the indicators and attach numerical targets to quantitative indicators and explain who will analyze these. Some examples of indicators could include measuring the skill level attained by participants to establish the impact of new methods, as well as measuring quality of the results produced. Methods to measure achievement may include surveys, web analytics, focus groups, interviews, and other similar methods. Section Intellectual Outputs. As the primary goal of exchange of good practices projects is to allow organizations to develop and reinforce networks and increase their capacity to operate at transnational level, this type of project are not expected to produce substantial intellectual outputs. Therefore, intellectual outputs section within application form will be disabled, and answer no will be automatically pre-filled under the section Do you plan to include intellectual outputs in your project? Exchange of good practices projects might also produce tangible outputs and are expected to disseminate the results of their activities, although in a way that is proportionate to the aims and scope of the project. These results and activities will be co-financed through the standard budget for project management and implementation. Section Multiplier Events. Multiplier events are only applicable if you plan to deliver substantial intellectual outputs. Multiplier events are national or transnational events aimed specifically at disseminating intellectual outputs. So, if there are no intellectual outputs, there can be no multiplier events. For Exchange of Good Practices project, this section is disabled and automatically prefilled with answer no, so you won't be able to plan any multiplier events for your project. Section Learning, Teaching and Training Activities. Learning, teaching, and training activities can be included if they are clearly linked to the project objectives. The program guide lists the eligible activity types and durations. See page 107. If you include learning, teaching, and training activities, you should clearly explain how they will support the achievement of your project objectives and whether you plan to use any EU tools such as Europass, EoP, EPALE, or any other national instruments to validate the learning outcomes of the participants. If your application is an adult education field, you may want to consult with the website of the Electronic Platform for Adult Education in Europe, EPALE. Europass is another useful tool for recognizing learning in both VET and adult education projects. If you are planning to include learning, teaching, and training activities, choose Yes from the drop-down menu to generate and complete this part of the application. For demonstration purposes, we will show how to create a teaching, training, and learning activity. It will appear as C1 activity in the Activity Details field. By opening the details of the activity, you will be able to input information. As a reminder, the program guide contains information about the different types of activities that are possible for each field. You'll then need to choose the appropriate field of activity. Our project relates to adult education field, so it is expected to carry out activities only in the field of adult education. Next, select Activity Type from the drop-down menu. Activity type will define the maximum duration of the activity. For the demonstration purposes, we will select Long-Term Teaching and Training Assignments. Input activity title, as well as activity description, and choose leading organization for this activity. When choosing participating organizations, please be aware that learning, teaching, and training activities should include participants from beneficiary organizations from at least 2 different countries. Therefore, we are choosing other 2 members of our demonstration partnership. Duration of the activity is 2 months, as this is the long-term activity. Please refer to the program guide to specific eligible duration for all activities. Then choose country of venue. We will choose Finland, as Testikimo is located in Helsinki. And finally, select months when activity will take place. Once this part is completed, you should move to groups of participants. Here you have to define the groups of participants who will require funding to participate in this activity. Now open the Details section and start filling out information. Here you have to input information about travel and individual support. Please bear in mind that participants in teaching, training, and learning activities must have a link with the organizations participating as funded partners in the project. For example, they should be staff or learners of the participating organizations. So, choose one of the participating organizations. In our demonstration, we will choose 4 participants and 1 accompanying person. Once this is done, follow the structure of the web form. Then move to Group Budget, Travel, to claim funds for travel to C1 activity. Please note that travel funds is a contribution to the travel costs of participants, including accompanying persons, from their place of origin to the venue of activity and the return journey. You will also have to use the distance calculator for this, but please note that the form uses different bands to the transnational project meetings. The duration of activity should exclude travel days. However, if participant will be traveling a long distance for the activity, it is possible to request individual support for up to 2 travel days, 1 on either side of the activity for short-term activities, which are those measured in days. If applicable, an extra 2 days can be added to the duration of activity in the budget section, along with a clear explanation to justify the reasons behind doing so in the description box. Extra travel days can't be added for long-term activities. Our demonstration activity will take place in Finland, so participants will travel from Birmingham to Helsinki, and we have to use the correct distance band. We now select the distance band and total amount of participants. And the cost for travel will be automatically calculated. Please note that exceptional costs for expensive travel is a heading that will only apply in exceptional cases where the normal unit costs calculated by using the distance calculator will not cover at least 70% of the expected travel costs for duly justified reasons. Examples might include where participants need to travel from very remote or distant areas, far from transport hubs. Any request for exceptional costs will need to be clearly justified, including the evidence of the expected costs in order to be approved. Where such costs are justified, you can request for up to 80% of the expected eligible costs. In the demo version, we are not requesting costs for expensive travel. Now moving to individual support. You will see how budget is being calculated once you input number of participants and duration of activity. Once this is done and the information is correct and checked, you can request a linguistic support for your participants. By inputting same number of participants, it will calculate the amount eligible for linguistic support. In order to qualify for linguistic support, your activity should have minimum duration of 2 months. Linguistic support can be offered to participants to improve their knowledge of the language of the host country in order to support their active participation. Any costs requested under this budget heading must be clearly justified within the body of the application. The application won't allow you to request linguistic support if you don't have a learning, teaching, and training activity that meets the minimum duration. Please note that we demonstrated steps for only one organization that we selected for participation. Same steps apply for all organizations that will be participating in the activity. Therefore, you will have to calculate the same for other organizations. Section Timetable. This section summarizes all the activities planned during the project once you have inputted them under a different section of your application. It will give you the overview of the timeline, which you can then utilize to create Gantt chart for the project. We will now go back to section Learning, Teaching, and Training Activities to double-check the correctness of the information. As you can see, the error is in the List of Activities section. Open Details again. Go through inputted information and check if everything is correct. If your errors are persistent, clear the inputted fields and enter information once again. After you checked all the information in the field, but the problem still persists, please contact the national agency. Now we will go to the section Special Costs. Under this section, special costs are split into two subheadings: Special Needs Support and Exceptional Costs. Exceptional costs relates exclusively to subcontracting of the purchase of goods or services that cannot be delivered or provided by the organizations participating in the project for duly justified reasons. Any costs requested under this heading must be explicitly justified within the application. Where such costs are justified, you can request to up to 75% of the expected costs, up to a maximum total of 50,000 euros per project. For example, if you expect the total cost for subcontracting for external evaluation of the project to be 1,000 euros, you can request up to 75% of planned costs, meaning 750 euros. Visa costs are not considered eligible as exceptional costs under Key Action 2. Any visa costs will need to be co-financed using the project management and implementation budget. Please note that your subcontractor can't be your project partner, as it will be considered as a double funding. In respect to the special needs support and exceptional cost description, the application form allows you to write up to 5,000 characters, so please ensure that any requests under these budget headings clearly described and justified in the application form. Special needs support. This budget heading that results in additional costs is only applicable if you plan to involve participants with special needs. This component of the grant is based on an estimate of the actual costs relating specifically to the needs of participants with disabilities. In this budget section, you will need to identify the activities that requested costs relate to. The participation of individuals with special needs must be justified in the main body of application form. You can claim up to 100% of real costs incurred for special needs support. As a reminder, under Erasmus+, a person with special needs is defined as a potential participant whose physical, mental, or health-related situation is such that his or her participation in the project would not be possible without extra financial support. Section Follow-up. In this section focuses on three areas of the project: impact, dissemination, and sustainability. Please remember that impact is a very important element in the Erasmus Plus project, and you must therefore show the importance of your proposal on your target groups and beyond, as well as in local, regional, national, and European level. You may also find it useful to visit the KA2 Impact Assessment tool, which can offer you advice and guidance on how to measure the impact created within your Erasmus Plus project. Think about the added value of realizing this project on a European level, rather than with national partners, and explain this in here. Plan for dissemination activities to take part throughout your project lifetime, and not just at the end. During the early stages of your project, dissemination is very closely linked to promotion, so please promote your project and disseminate the idea before and after the results are materialized. Have a look at the Annex 2 of the program guide, which provides practical guidance on dissemination of your project. Demonstrate that dissemination will reach and engage all your partners, stakeholders, and wider network. And finally, make sure it's clear that your plans for sharing the results of your projects do not contain any limitations to free access. If you do intend to produce any limitations, you will need to explain and justify this here, bearing in mind the program requirements for open access. Section Budget Summary. In this section, you will see how all the budget headings filled before accumulated in the budget summary. Please check if the summary budget complies with the eligibility rules and tasks per partnership. You will find more detailed guidance on how to complete the budget section in our guides for applicants and in Part B of the program guide. Getting the budget right is important, as it can not only affect the funding you may receive for your project, but also quality assessment of your application. It is important to ensure that your budget is proportionate to your project and in line with the program budget rules. The maximum total grant available for any strategic partnership in the field of VET and adult education equals 12,500 euros per month, multiplied by the project duration in months. However, not all projects will receive the maximum grant. The budget for strategic partnerships is intended to be a contribution to the costs of delivering the project and might not cover all costs. The budget is made up of a number of different budget items, some of which are calculated on a unit cost basis and some of which are calculated on the basis of estimated actual costs. Some budget items, such as intellectual outputs and multiplier events, are only applicable for supporting innovation projects. Other budget items, such as exceptional costs and transnational teaching, training, and learning activities, may be applicable for any type of project, but must be strongly justified within the application form in order to be approved. You must refer to the detailed budget guidance on pages 116–124 of the 2019 Program Guide. This guidance outlines the definitions of what is considered eligible for funding under each budget heading and any conditions that apply. In addition to explaining how the budget item is calculated, it is very important to ensure that the funding you request for your project is eligible and well justified within the application. Ineligible or unjustified budget items may not be approved. You should design your project budget around the activities and outputs you need to deliver in order to achieve planned project objectives. Project Summary. In this section, you should provide a concise and clear summary of the project. Focus on objectives, context, and background of the project. Profile of participant, description of activities, methodology to be used in carrying out the project. Give short description of the results and impact you wish to achieve, and finally the potential longer-term benefits of the project. This summary will be used by the European Commission and the national agency in their publications and will also feed into Erasmus Plus Project Results platform. It should be written in clear, plain English, avoiding any technical sector-specific expressions to ensure that it can be understood by the general public. Consider this summary as a business card of your project. Section Annexes. The compulsory annexes which you need to attach to your application before submission are: originally signed Declaration of Honor, scanned mandates of each participating organization to applicant, originally signed by both parties. Electronic signature should not be used. If you fail to attach Declaration of Honor and/or mandates, your project application will be ineligible and won't be assessed. If the application is approved for funding, signed mandates will be considered as a condition for signing the grant agreement. Note that these documents are automatically pre-filled by the information you fill within the section Participating Organization. Annexes can be downloaded once Participating Organizations section is marked with green and information is filled correctly. Now we will show you main functionality of Annex section. It might take some time to download the document. Once it is open, please read the statements carefully. Legal representative of your organization will confirm compliance with the signature. Save the form to your computer. Print it out. Sign originally. Don't forget to enter date and place of signing. Scan the document in good quality and upload the annex to the application form as it is demonstrated on the screen. Same actions should be done with partner mandates. Open the document and read it carefully. Make sure all information is correct. Print out the documents, ensure that partners sign it where necessary, and send you back PDF the form well before submission of the application. Once the documents are uploaded correctly, this section will be automatically validated. Once you have attached compulsory annexes, and if you still have available capacity, you can attach other relevant annexes such as risk analysis, timetable of activities, known as Gantt chart, other complementary documents related to the project. However, these documents are optional. The maximum number of all attachments is 11, and the maximum total size is 10,240 kilobytes. Section Checklist. Checklist may help you to recap on all necessary steps before the submission of the application. Make sure all sections of your applications are valid, marked with green tick boxes. In order to proceed, you should agree with the specific privacy statement on data protection. Section Guidelines. This section provides you with the key points in regards to development of your application. Please read them carefully when you start completing your application and before submission, so you consider all key points noted in this guidance. In this section, you will also find useful links to application guidance. Please get yourself familiar with that and utilize throughout application. Section Notifications. This section shows notifications related to your application. Section Sharing. The sharing function can be utilized to support beneficiaries, allowing either viewing or editing access individuals from partner organizations. It is worth noting the following. Only individuals listed as legal reps or contact persons can be involved in the sharing function. Only one individual can access the form at one time. An automated email will be sent to your partner's contact person once the applicant chooses to share the form access. The partner's contact person will not have access to submit button, and therefore only the applicant can submit the application form once it's ready. Section Submission History. This section shows details on the submission of your application once it is valid and submitted. Finally, here are a few suggestions on the application submission procedure. You have to make sure that every section of the application form is valid. This is seen when tick boxes appear green at every section on the left of the form. You won't be able to submit the form if unresolved issues still appear on the form. Those are marked with red exclamation mark and will need to be resolved before you can submit the form. Ask someone else to proofread your final application before submission to ensure it is clear and covers everything. Ensure all the required annexes are attached and you have been signed originally where necessary. Save the final completed PDF version of your application form before submission to your PC in case of any submission issues. Ensure you are connected to the internet before you try to submit the application. Remember that the deadline mentioned in the form is Brussels time. As there is a time difference, the form must be submitted online by 11 a.m. UK time on Thursday, 21st of March 2019. Once you submit the application, section Submission History will be updated. Please check for the status in this section. Before we finish today's webinar, I'd just like to recap on some of the requirements and key points you need to be aware of. Once we have received your application, we will check its eligibility. You must ensure your application meets the eligibility requirements and that you attach all the required annexes to your application and submit it by the deadline. Unfortunately, if you don't meet the eligibility requirements, your application will be made ineligible and will not go forward to assessment. Please make sure you read the program guide and the National Agency Guidance for Applicants carefully and are clear about the requirements before submitting your application. Your organization and all partners will need to be validated by the national agency of the country where they are based in order to take part in the project. Validation is a separate process which runs in parallel to the application assessment process. Although your organization must be validated in order to be funded, your organization being validated does not automatically imply a successful outcome for your application. During the validation process, we will check whether all the information you put into the participant portal is complete and correct. We will check whether the required legal and financial forms have been uploaded, along with the required supporting documents. The key documents that need to be uploaded to the participant portal to support validation are legal entity form, financial identification form, and recent account information to demonstrate financial activity. Read the guide for applicants for further information. A reminder to familiarize yourself with the budget rules and ensure that your budget request is compliant and proportionate to your project. Organizations that are not validated cannot take part in Erasmus Plus funded projects. You should therefore ensure that both your organization and all your partners have correctly updated the participant portal and uploaded all the required supporting documents in good time. Please make sure we can reach you after submission of your application for the validation process, as additional explanations might be asked from you. Delays can impact the assessment and contracting processes and may ultimately result in any offer of funding being withdrawn. Budget. The absolute maximum budget for the projects are 450,000 euros for a 36-month project. However, not all projects will request or receive the maximum available budget. You must design your budget around the partnership, objectives, activities, and results of your project, ensuring that you comply with the budget rules. The Erasmus Plus grant is intended as a contribution to the costs of delivering the project and may not cover all costs. Note that some parts of the budget might be reduced during assessment stage. Most budget items are calculated based on the unit costs. For example, this can be the number of participants for a certain duration or a set cost per distance traveled. Budget headings based on unit costs are project management and implementation, transnational project meetings, intellectual outputs, and multiplier events. Costs under learning, teaching, training activities, travel, individual support, and linguistic support are also based on unit costs. Some budget items are based on an estimate of likely real costs. These are special needs support and exceptional costs, as well as exceptional costs for expensive travel under learning, teaching, and training activities. These budget headings require detailed justification within the application form, and you are entitled to claim a percentage of the estimated likely costs depending on the budget heading. You should refer to Part B of the program guide and the guidance for applicants for detailed information on the rules and requirements for each budget item. Finally, and most importantly, your budget should be proportionate to your planned activities and demonstrate reasonable value for money. Organizations must ensure that Erasmus Plus funding is used to deliver the activities that are set out in their application. If you or any of your partners are receiving other funding from other sources to deliver the same or similar activities, including from other EU funding programs, you must disclose this in the relevant section of the application form and ensure that there is no overlap or risk of double funding. Each project is only entitled to receive one grant. Identical or very similar applications submitted either by the same applicant or partners or by a different applicant or partners will be subject to a specific assessment and may all be rejected. As a reminder, the following documents must be annexed to the application form: the Declaration of Honor signed by the legal representative mentioned in the application form, mandates of each partner to the applicant signed by both parties and with information identical to the information about the partners in the application form. Separate spreadsheet outlining project timetable is optional. You may scan all partner mandates into one single file. However, Declaration of Honor should be scanned and uploaded separately. If, after checking that the annexes are within the size and file format limits, you are still experiencing problems with attaching annexes, you can email them to erasmusplus@ecoris.com. Clearly state which application form they relate to by providing the application form ID and your organization's details as well as the project's name. But please do this only as a last resort after you have followed all the available guidance first. If you are considering reapplying in 2019, please bear in mind the following. Don't resubmit exactly the same application form from a previous call year without making any changes. Do make sure you take on board the feedback from the assessors and any budget assessment comments and address them. Bear in mind that there have been some changes to key documents, including the program guide and guide for experts for 2019. Ensure that you refer to the up-to-date 2019 call documents and update your application accordingly. Also bear in mind that the application assessment process is competitive and only the highest scoring applications may be funded. Each year the number of applications received is different. However, the competition is high. The best way to ensure success is to submit a high-quality application. This slide just summarizes important segments of the application process. Submission of the web form by Thursday, 21st of March 2019 at 11 a.m. UK time. Ensuring that all relevant annexes are attached. Ensuring that budget of the project is justified and provides value for money. Ensuring that project and partnership meets eligibility and validation criteria. A few final hints and tips before we conclude. Ensure you carefully read all the up-to-date European Commission documents for the call 2019, as well as the National Agency 2019 call guidance for applicants. Keep answers clear and concise, and make sure all the questions are answered. Don't assume that anything is obvious, and make good use of 5,000 characters limits in the text boxes. Make sure you refer to the award criteria which your application will be assessed against as you complete the application. From time to time, save PDF version of the application in case of technical difficulties with web form and errors with autosave functionality. Ensure the budget your request is accurate, in line with the budget rules, and well justified. And finally, don't put aside completion of the application form to the last days prior to the deadline. Make sure you submit it well before deadline to avoid technical errors that might happen on the last day of submission. To conclude, I would like to remind you of the support that UK National Agency will be offering in the run-up to the deadline of 21st of March. A live Q&A webinar will be taking place on February 20. You can register via the Erasmus Plus website, but bear in mind that places are limited. All Call 2019 documents as well as other key documents can be found on the website of the National Agency. There are separate guides for KA2 VET and adult education. Please read them carefully, as they are designed to help you to submit a good quality application. If you haven't done so, please sign up to our newsletter to keep you with the key information about the call and other developments in Erasmus+. We also have a helpline where our team is available to answer your questions about your KA2 VET adult education. Thank you for listening to this pre-recorded webinar. If you have any further questions, please contact us via email addresses or number on the screen. The team is available Monday to Thursday, 9 a.m. till 5:30 p.m. and Fridays, 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. to help you with any queries. We wish you all the best with your application.